Well, at least it's better than Ghostbusters. Suicide Squad is on par with the stupidity of Batman vs. Superman. The only slightly redeeming quality is the fact that this movie actually has a good cast and a really good soundtrack. Okay, let's get the two good things out of the way. First of all, the soundtrack is really good. Second of all, Will Smith kills it. That's really all about this movie that's actually any good at all. God damn it, Will Smith. Why do you have to have such a good performance in such a bad movie? Okay, first off, this movie has awful pacing and even worse editing. It actually makes that Warcraft movie look somewhat good by comparison. For example, in the beginning of a movie, a witch possesses a black guy, and then the black guy turns into a giant Hawaiian thing, and then the Hawaiian thing turns into the thing from the thing, and then the thing turns into a giant robot Hawaiian thing, and then he starts killing subway people. And then in the very next scene, it cuts to morning, and at first I thought it was just the very next morning. It actually turns out it's 3 days later, but the movie doesn't tell you that until about half an hour later. There's also multiple points in the movie where there's text on the screen, but you can't read all of it because half the time it's scrolling up way too fast and then disappears after a few seconds. Or, like in the beginning of the movie, there was black text on a dark screen, so you only had about a second and a half to read it before it was completely unreadable for the entire rest of that moment. Or sometimes you get a combination of both, and you couldn't read it or see it. There's also some really pointless scenes in this movie. For example, near the beginning, a guy brings the witch into the subway to blow up the big Hawaiian robot thing, but then it turns out she bolted, and you don't see it happen, so it makes you think that something mysterious happened. But then about an hour later into the movie, you realize that really nothing happened at all, and all she did was ran away. Oh, and back to the bad editing, later on there's a scene in the water with Killer Croc, and it looks like Killer Croc is killing all these Marines, but one Marine survives, and he doesn't make it seem like that was what was happening, but the editing was so choppy and everything was so dark that you really couldn't tell what was happening. And what was really off-putting was the fact that Deadshot and Harley Quinn had really fleshed out backstories, but other characters straight up had no backstory or very, very minimal backstory. Speaking of Harley Quinn, let's talk about the Joker in this movie. Why he was even here is absolutely dumbfounding to me. He plays absolutely no important role in the movie at all and has nothing to do with the actual plot. Not to mention, every time he came on screen, it was really uncomfortable. Not like Heath Ledger uncomfortable, but more like cringe-worthy uncomfortable. I still really hate his new design. Not to mention, you can't really tell what kind of Joker Jared Leto is going for. Is he going for Jack Nicholson? Is he going for Mark Hamill? Is he going for Heath Ledger? Is he going for something else? You can't tell because it looks like he's trying to go for the comic book and TV show cartoon version of the Joker, while at the same time trying to live up to the epicness of Heath Ledger, but he just kind of feels forced and jumbled and none of it really makes much sense. In fact, all he does in this movie is have a love affair with Harley Quinn. His entire involvement in the plot has absolutely nothing to do with anything. I really don't understand why they put him in this movie at all. There was this one moment, though, where he was shooting a gun and he looked completely and utterly sadistic and insane, and at that point I was like, wow, that's almost Heath Ledger-like performance from Jared Leto. But that was only about 5 seconds out of this 2.5-hour movie. Did I mention he's only in the movie for about 10 minutes, too? I actually heard of all this really crazy fucked up shit that Jared Leto was doing because he was staying in character the entire time that he was on set. And at first I was like, wow, that's really cool. He's kind of doing what Heath Ledger was doing. But now, after seeing he's only in the movie for 10 minutes, it was probably really annoying for everyone else working on the movie for him to be acting it up the whole time when he's only in the movie for about 10 minutes and plays a role that's not important at all. It sucks because I had a lot of faith that Jared Leto could do pretty good in this role, both because he is a very good actor and because I'm a 30 Seconds to Mars fan. But he played such a small, inconsequential, and pointless role in this movie that I really can't make much of a good impression from it. I'm interested to see what he would do in his own standalone Batman movie, but at this point, it's just not good. The absolute stupidest part of this movie, however, was the plot. Basically, the Enchantress is the main bad guy, and she wants to make a robot god thing, and the robot turns into a cloud that encompasses 30% of the Earth and destroys everything. I really don't know what this obsession with destroying the entire planet in every single DC movie is. First it was Man of Steel, then it was Batman vs. Superman, now it's this. But don't worry, everything's gonna be perfectly fixed in about 2 months down in this timeline. Anyway, some big idiot thinks that bringing a bunch of bad guys together can make them good guys to fight an even worse bad guy. First of all, that is stupid. And second, it just doesn't really matter, since half of these characters aren't compelling at all and you don't care about any of them. Not to mention, at the end, nothing matters because they all just go back to jail and then nothing happens. There was no lasting impression on the DC universe from this movie. The CGI was spotty at most, it wasn't particularly good. There were a few jokes in the movie where I chuckled a bit, but beyond that, I was not really impressed with anything in this entire movie. Basically, you have to be a blind DC fanboy to enjoy this film. That or someone like Jeremy Jahns who thinks this and Ghostbusters are really good. Oh, Jeremy. Why? Okay, yeah, this movie kinda sucked. I give it a 5 out of 10. Don't watch it. It's not worth your time or your money. DC, just stop. Stop trying to replicate the success of Marvel, because you're not good at it. Apparently the only director that's good at making a series out of the DC universe is Christopher Nolan, because the Dark Knight trilogy is awesome, but the past 3 DC movies have all sucked. So stop trying to be the next Marvel, because you're never going to be. Do something different. We don't want you to be the next Marvel, because Marvel is its own thing. Do your own thing. I'm the Dishonored Wolf, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.